You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. This episode of Pizza Quest is brought to you by Central Milling, hand-selected grain, expertly milled for passionate bakers. Central Milling is the farmer, the miller, and the baker working together to preserve American farmland for tomorrow while providing the highest quality flour and grains for the bakers of today. Dating back over 150 years, Central Milling is built on generations of knowledge, and they know that premium flour starts at the source. Employee-owned, Central Milling works directly with their farmers to sustainably grow grains that have exceptional flavor, nutrient content, color, and baking performance, which results in one of the largest selections of premium specialty flour and grains in the country. Hand-selected for the highest baking qualities, milled, cracked, or blended slowly to minimize heat generation, then bake-tested for performance. Learn more about Central Milling and their products at centralmilling.com. Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt. Welcome to Pizza Quest, and I'm coming to you today from Las Vegas, Nevada at the 2024 Pizza Expo, sitting with two colleagues in the pizza universe, Kathleen Kennedy, an old friend of mine from my days at the California Culinary Academy, and Tim Brown, who is, would you say, you're also a franchise holder in the Marco's Pizza Company, right. but you're also an officer in the company itself. Right?
Yeah, I'm the chief of operations.
Chief operations officer. Yeah. So we're going to do something a little different today because when we're at Pizza Expo, we see a lot of independent operators. The floor is, hundreds and hundreds of operators here looking for products and cheese and going to classes on how to improve their pizzas. You don't see that many people from the big pizza chains, the ones that have multi-units. They have their own events, I'm guessing, but also maybe they're walking the floor here, but they're not performing. They're looking to see what the independents are coming up with in terms of innovation and quality, but you guys have a different challenge. So first, I want to welcome you. Thanks for joining me today. We haven't ever really done a show with someone from one of what I'll call the Big Five. And I'm just guessing that the Big Five are probably, Domino's, Pizza Hut, maybe you help me jump in, Little Caesars.
Yep. Papa John's.
Papa John's, and then Marco's. Right?
Correct.
Marco's is number 5. And these 5 companies have so many pizza units around the world that they essentially, those 5 probably sell 50% of all the pizzas that are sold and consumed in the world. And the other 50% are divided between the thousands of the small independent operators that show up here at Pizza Expo. So you guys have a totally different set of challenges in doing multi-unit operations. Well, Tim, as the chief operating officer, what are your challenges and what are some of the things that you have to be aware of and concerned about in making the Marco's experience? And by the way, I have a Marco's in my neighborhood, and the pizza's really, really good. And I think we're not going to talk about the other 4 in the Big Five, but I have to say that my wife, who's much fussier about her pizza, said, "Okay, this is one I would eat again." And for her to say that is big praise. So congratulations on that. How did you get there? And I'm going to maybe preface this by asking this. At one time, Marco's must have been a freestanding independent pizza operation who somehow found the way to, multiply and franchise. So can you give us a little backstory on that?
Well, it was founded in 1978 by Pasquale Giammarco, whose family immigrated to the United States in 1964. And when he became old enough, in his mind, wise enough to do his own thing, because his family had a family restaurant, Pat decided that I'm going to do pizza because it's simple. And he picked a spot in Toledo, Ohio, on the east side of Toledo, Ohio, to build his first restaurant. He used family recipes for the sauce, decided that he was going to be all about fresh. I'm not going to be like the chain pizzerias that are out there now. Domino's at the time had 250, maybe 300 stores. And pizza, of course, was the biggest at the time. But so I'm going to make my dough fresh. I'm going to make my sauce in the store every day. I'm going to use a fresh shredded cheese. I'm going to do my vegetables fresh. So that was the start of Marco's Pizza.
So like many other pizzerias, freestanding pizzerias, it was his baby and it was his...
He was like the hundreds of the operators I've seen here at the convention.
Yeah.
You know, the independent guys, the ones who are walking around like your friend John Arena, who just walked through here. That guy's, you know, pretty much of a legend. He was like that, you know, and then we blossomed into what we are today, to a 1,200 plus store chain that's on our way to, you know, 4,000 or more units.
And worldwide, not just domestically here in the United States.
Correct, right. We have stores in Puerto Rico, we have stores in the Bahamas, and
so that is
a
a
deal
huge,
in Mexico now too.
Huge leap from a free independent store to, and there's have to been intermediate steps along the way. Along the way, of course, mentioned you also have at least 20 franchises of your own of Marco's. Right?
I own 15. I've got 2 in development, but I'm also an area developer for Marco's.
You wear many hats.
Yeah, I am. And 28 stores in the territories that I'm developing in East Nashville and Northern Alabama and Huntsville.
Amazing. Well, let's bring Kathleen in on this because you're new to Marco's, right?
I am.
You're the new kid on the Marco's. Always one of our friends walking by now. We're at Expo, so we get to see all sorts of things. John has one of the best Neapolitan pizzerias in the country in Chicago, Spacco Napoli. So,
Okay.
So we're live here, so we're constantly seeing familiar faces. And so Kathleen, you're new at Marco's. You weren't necessarily a pizza baby. You came in. You were a chef. When I first met you, you were a full-service chef and teaching culinary at California Culinary. But you also have worked in restaurants. You've worked for other companies doing product development.
Right.
And, that's not just pizza-based. Tell us how you got from there to Marco's, and what's your role at Marco's now?
So my role at Marco's is I'm the director of culinary innovation. I'm basically their corporate chef. I've been there about 4 months, and I feel like I'm making a huge difference because we've really put together a calendar for this year, and we're working on a calendar for next year. And it's really exciting. My pizza background is I've worked at Walmart on pizza when I was director of culinary for them. I've done some consulting for Palermo's and for Papa Murphy's. And I had done some pizza for Kraft as well. But really, I got into pizza when you used to make the dough for the restaurant I was the chef at the California Culinary Academy.
That's how we first connected. She was teaching a restaurant class, and I was teaching a baking class, and she needed for her restaurant pizza dough and pizza shells, and so I had my class make it for you. And that's why we're talking about 1995, folks. So it's a long time ago.
Yeah,
nearly 30 years ago. So you know, and of course, you're a cook, you're a chef.
Yes.
You could work in any medium. Pizza is just one of many mediums. What were some of the learning curves that you have to now sort of add to your repertoire, or that you have added over the years as you worked in pizza for other companies and now bringing those skills to Marco's?
So it's interesting. In the interview process, Tim asked me some questions about fermentation and my expertise in dough. And you know what I told him? I am not the expert, but I know one. And I met you.
Sometimes
sometimes
it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Exactly. But I think, you know, yesterday your class on fermentation, I mean, to me, I'm remembering all the basics of the food science behind pizza, because I'm more of the artist. I'm more of the, let's try 20 different varieties of some kind of pizza, and let's get to the best.
I like to think of, you know, chefs like you. Another term I sometimes use is you're a flavorist. You understand flavor, and that your job, and I think this is the challenge for any business, food business, is delivering flavor to the customers. And so that's what differentiates the success of one versus the other. Who delivers the most flavor in the most consistent manner? Which brings it back to Tim and his role to make sure that consistency, you know, if you develop something new or what's already been developed over the years. The founder was Pasquale, did you say?
Pasquale Giammarco.
So imagine Pat saying to Pat, "Hey, we're going to have a culinary director someday, Pat." You know, he'd go, "We don't need a culinary director.
Exactly.
I'm the culinary director." But
you're exactly right.
So take us a little through the timeline of Marco's growth. So 68 or so, we come out with single unit. When did it start to go multi-unit, and then from there to, you know, global behemoth or whatever it's called?
Right. Well, Pat was selling some franchises, mostly to friends and family early on in the 80s, and then in the company ended up getting up to 124, maybe 146 stores. I'm not sure of the number, but in early 2000s, Pat entertained the the idea of possibly selling the franchise rights to someone else, and Pat just being an owner of his own stores. And he ended up striking a deal with Jack Budarak in 2004. And it's now been 20 years that Jack and a group of investors have bought the franchise rights from Pat and formed Marco's Franchising LLC. And that's when the company, we had close to almost like a hockey stick moment for us as far as growth. Went from a 140 store chain that was basically regional,
Yeah.
the Toledo, Cleveland, southeastern Michigan part of the country, to what you just said. We're on our way to becoming a global behemoth. Our first store in Mexico is going to open at the end of May. We've got stores, 62 stores in Puerto Rico by the end of the month. We've got stores in the Bahamas. And of course, right now we're in 38 different states in the United States.
Including North Carolina, because that's where I'm based.
You're right. We have quite a few in the Charlotte area, Raleigh-Durham, Greensboro.
So is Pat still alive? Is he still with us?
Oh yeah, Pat. Oh yeah,
He's active in the business?
He
or
is.
he enjoying his retirement?
He still owns 14 stores.
Wow.
In the Toledo, Ohio area, and I don't know if I'm going to share a little known and, in my opinion, a very carried about fact for me. Some people maybe a little
Turn
known.
off your
less carried
radio,
about
Pat.
that,
We're going to talk about you.
is Toledo is one of two TV DMAs in the United States where Domino's, Papa John's, Pizza Hut, or Little Caesars is not the number one pizza chain in that market. Marco's is number one, and the second largest pizza chain is so far in the Pat's rearview mirror, you can't see them.
That's amazing. So you own Toledo, basically.
Dominate Toledo. Yeah.
And Toledo, it's interesting because all these big companies all have these Midwestern, headquarters.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Detroit, you think of Domino's in Detroit.
Domino's is in Ann Arbor. Little Caesars in Detroit. Hungry Howie's in Madison Heights, Michigan, which is just north of Detroit. Jets Pizza in Warren, Michigan. They're a growing
Is Pizza
company.
Hut now owned by Pepsi? Are they under the Pepsi umbrella?
Pizza Hut is part of the Yum Brands.
Yum Brands, yeah.
And they're in Texas.
So they're in Texas. So they're
Yeah.
the only one, but not there. But
Right.
but it seems like for some reason the Midwest style of pizza. We don't think of that as the sort of. We think of New York, we think of Detroit,
Right.
but Midwest is really the heartland of pizza. And for a long time in these pizza competitions, one of the things I noticed when I first started coming to these expos is a lot of the pizza champions were independent operators out of Ohio, many of them.
Right.
And they had one-off places, but they were making a name for themselves.
Yep. Fast pizza makers, artisan pizza makers. Some of the best have definitely come out of the Midwest.
I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone's written a book about it, but it seems like it'll be a great study to have. There's got to be something about that heartland experience. I mean, maybe it speaks for the broader palette of what Americans like and what the global market likes in food, because it's. Well, maybe since we got you here and you're experts in this, what differentiates, say, a Marco's style of pizza, which is a round Neapolitan-ish style pizza, from a New York style pizza? There's all these new terminologies coming out. There's Neapolitan, there's Neapolitan-ish, there's Detroit style. How would you define the style of pizza that you guys make?
Well, closer to a Neapolitan New York style. We're primarily a hand tossed pizza. Our dough is made in the store fresh every day, which is that's not Big Five-ish, right?
Even across all these multi-units.
Yes.
So that is definitely a differentiator. Yeah.
Which was that's honestly, Peter, that's what attracted me to Marco's because I was with Domino's for 27 years prior to that, and I got plenty of compliments about how fast we were.
Yeah.
No one ever told me how great my pizza was. Never.
After a while, you would start to yearn for that compliment.
Well,
Yeah.
it was astonishing for me when I first got into Marco's that the number of people said how great my pizza was. Well,
Right.
I have the control of the basic foundation of my business because I make my dough fresh every day.
So either at the individual shops, or do you have like a commissary?
Individual shops.
Every shop makes their own.
Every
Yeah,
shop
no
makes their own
commissary.
dough.
So that's one of the challenges that you have then as an operating officer, to make sure that they're all doing it right.
Correct.
Your brand is based on this aspect.
It is. And now we've gotten pretty good at teaching people how to make dough. That part was not the hard part. I mean, we got the tools to help them do that, to make sure it's consistent every time. The challenge is now, and this is something that you and so many people here are always looking to master, is the management of the dough, right? It's a living product. So that's the challenge,
Right.
is managing the dough once you make it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So that's is there training for the individual operators when they come in? If someone buys the rights to a franchise or a franchise area and they're going to open one or multiple units, how do they learn your standards and your craft?
they're not reading a book. They're putting on an apron. They're putting on a uniform. They're going to be in a pizza store for 8 weeks. They're going to learn this business from the bottom up. You know, they're going to learn how to make a batch of sauce, how to make a batch of dough, how to manage that dough once it's made, how to get that dough from 85 degrees down to 35 degrees as quickly as possible, so that you maximize the shelf life. We've got a 72-hour shelf life on our dough.
Right.
You know, we're not engineering a dough that's going to last 8 or 9 days to be shipped from a commissary to a store 100 miles away. We're doing it in the restaurant. So that's got to be taught, and that's it's a bit of an art form, because the biggest enemy of dough is time, temperature, and time and temperature is what's always talked about. But I'm going to throw in another one: humidity. Okay,
yeah.
Because humidity, depending in southern Alabama, 80 degrees in 1 hour. In Michigan. Has a certain effect on new dough, right?
Yeah.
Well, 80 degrees in an hour, coupled with 85% humidity in Alabama, it will almost double the time that you'll lose that dough if you're not careful, because of the humidity.
And they have to understand that,
Right.
And you've got to have a way to convey that knowledge to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
How many people come into the Marco's family, so to speak, with prior pizza experience and training, maybe from having their own place or being an independent, or just going to some school somewhere?
We've had hundreds. Okay, myself being one of them, come from large chains. When we've had some come from small pizzerias. We got one of my best ops guys right now, who actually lives in Napoleon, Ohio, and supports the Toledo market. He grew up in a family pizzeria business in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Ran that place for 25 years, and so he gets the artisan side of pizza, and he was like a duck to water when he came to us.
Yeah, you had something to work with there. Right. But although I've talked to bakers who were trying to expand, for instance, a very famous French baker named Lionel Poilâne had maybe the most famous bread in the world in Paris, and he had maybe 24 young bakers working for him as his apprentices, and he would train them to do his method. And I said, how do you find these young apprentices? He says, the first thing is, I never hire somebody who's worked in another bakery, because it's too hard to untrain them of everything that they think they know. Yeah, does that ring any kind of a bell for you? Do you run into that kind of thing?
Yes, and anybody who comes from another pizza place, I tell them, and this was when I first came to Marco's, I said this to myself: I will never say, well, at Domino's we did it this way. And I've told other people, if you're coming from Papa John's, if you're coming from Lou Malnati's, if you're coming from Hungry Howie's, don't ever say this is how we did it there.
Right.
Okay, I get that, and you might be able to bring some good ideas from them, but this is how we do it at Marco's. And this is really what works for us.
So, so you've got your basic menu line that you've had for years and years, which are classic sauce and cheese pizzas with variations, mostly in the Neapolitan-ish or New York style. When people ask me locally, I was telling somebody about having a market, say, well, what style of pizza is it? And they wanted to get their mind around what it reminded them of. And I said, well, I think of it as, even though it comes out of the Midwest, it's kind of more of a New York style pizza, Neapolitan-ish New York style, just to give them a mental equivalent, so they know, okay, it's round, it's sauce. But you're doing other kinds of pizzas now, in addition to that, right? You're doing some square pizzas. Kathleen is working on that.
She's kind of like almost at the speed of light right now with innovation.
Pretty
and
fast.
she mentioned earlier about the calendar, building out a calendar for the year. We've never done that, it's hard for me to try to keep up with what she's got going on.
And I know with
in the
innovation,
kitchen.
you have to be kind of careful about not saying
Yes.
it's too soon. But are there any things that you can talk about, or anything that's about to come out that you can talk about what you've been working on, or what's coming?
Well, I can tell you about some things that just got launched in the last
yeah,
6
okay,
months.
that's good.
And one of them is a Pozzoli. So it's like a Stromboli. You used to make Stromboli,
Yes,
I remember, and I
yes.
loved that. And so it's a dough rolled
Rolled
with
up.
pepperoni and cheese, and it's just really buttery and flaky and really delicious.
Yeah.
Also, a hot honey pizza. We were one of the first big chains to do a hot honey pizza.
Because that all started right here at Pizza Expo, Hot Honey.
Yep.
With it started at Paulie G's in Brooklyn, but I think now we've got Mike's Hot Honey
Mike's
as a
Hot
booth
Honey.
here, and it started as just him making hot honey for Paulie G's, and now it's a global brand.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and-
And it was Mike's Hot Honey that
Right.
we partnered with.
So this is a great
for our
example,
launch.
I think, of
Yeah.
how from independent to multi-unit, and how innovation that starts at the grassroots can show up now on the big stage.
And we're just this week in Chicago. We are filming both live and stills of what's coming in the future, which I can't talk about, of
Right,
course.
but coming soon to a
But
theater
coming
near
soon,
you. Yeah.
a lot of things on trend, and I think that we're really going to be setting some trends coming into the future.
Awesome. Do you now when we talk about being connected to those trends, you're really dealing with your main competition is not the local pizzeria. Your competition are the other big guys, the
Right.
Pizza Huts and the Domino's of the world. So when you say you're going to be setting some of those trends,
Yes.
what happens when they go, hey? Thanks for doing all that research and getting the product out there. Now we're going to come in and do our version of that.
Well,
That
I
happened
think
with
we just
Detroit
had
Style, I
that.
think.
We had it with Hot Honey.
Yeah.
Well, another big guy came out with Hot Honey right after us.
Is that right?
Right. So
Yeah. They came out with the us too. Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but
so
we
it's
were
a
there
Me
first.
Too, and we were
Yeah.
there first.
And
But-
this is the name of the game. I mean, in the food business, you're always, looking to see what everyone else is doing.
Yes.
If something looks like a good idea for you, then you want to bring it in. If you can make money on it.
Right.
Well, that's why we're here too, is to see what's going on in the mom and pops.
Yeah.
And to really get the idea of what trends, what machinery.
Have you had a chance to walk the floor? This is our second day at Expo. Have you had a chance to see anything out there that kind of looks interesting or
Oh
intriguing?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. We got some vendor partners that also got some time with us yesterday, and
Yeah, Hormel especially.
yeah, and they've got they've got culinary chefs that work for them. They got some innovative minds over there, and they shared with us some pretty interesting ideas.
Well, it might be-
I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
But it's got to be fun for you to think about maybe brainstorming with some of these other chef innovators, from these other companies to brainstorm new ideas.
I think that's one of the things I learned in R&D is that you want to leverage your vendor partners for their minds as well, and you never know where the next idea is coming from.
Right.
So all these chefs that go to all these different shows and all these different restaurants, we work together and we feed off of each other to come up with the next flavor trend.
Well, that's awesome. I know that you said one of the things that differentiates you from your main competitors. When I say competitors, we're talking about the big
Yeah.
multi-unit operators. Is your dough that are you like the only ones that have every shop make their own dough? You've got to be.
Yes.
I
We
can't
are.
even imagine that every Pizza Hut or Domino's would be making their own dough, in house.
No.
And it was so intriguing to me when I was interviewing because I was in Colorado Springs and I didn't feel like there was great pizza there. And I ordered a Marco's and I was shocked that there was a complex dough. I think you taught me about slow fermentation through refrigeration.
Yeah.
And that they were refrigerating for 18 hours before they used the dough. To me, it showed that they care.
You could taste the
The
difference.
quality, you
Yeah.
can totally taste the difference.
So, what are some of the other things that you guys do that are either similar or different? For instance, at your scale, you've got to be going through cheese like crazy. So, how do you differentiate your cheese from the competitors' cheese?
Well, we have a blend of 3 different fresh cheeses. We don't tell what is in it.
When you say fresh cheese, meaning that it's never been frozen?
It's never been frozen.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not chopped. It's shredded. And some of it's full fat, and it's absolutely a delicious combination.
And that's like the house blend that you use
Yes.
in your meat. Okay, good. So that's your own proprietary blend.
It's
so
a
to speak.
proprietary
is,
blend.
right.
Yes.
That's awesome. But I think the key there is that you're not getting quick frozen cheese.
No.
No.
And it's hard for me to get my head around 1,000 units all having access to that cheese. So you got to work out partnerships with cheese companies. You're allowed to say who your
Yes.
cheese suppliers
Right.
and vendors are, or is that still sort of
Yeah, well, no,
in-house?
it's common knowledge. We're partnered with Leprino. They've done a great job with the fresh cheese business. We also use Saputo, and Great Lakes provides some of our
So
fresh
you have
cheese
to have
as well.
really more than one vendor because you
Yes.
got to have backup. Number one, and
Well, yeah, and freight, we got to. More cheese is made in California than anywhere in the world.
That's
a lot
right,
of people
yeah.
don't realize that.
Yeah, that's right.
But we got stores out there out west. Well, here in Vegas and Arizona, Colorado. So it's closer to bring the cheese from California and save our franchise operators money.
is Saputo, is that a Wisconsin company?
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
so just for insider knowledge, from your this is just personal opinion now. Can you tell the difference between say a mozzarella made in California versus one made in Wisconsin? Are they pretty comparable? Because both those brands, the Wisconsin cheese brands and the California, they're also trying to push their products.
Right.
I would trust her palate more than mine, but I can't taste the difference.
Yeah.
I think there are some slight differences. Yeah.
And that's, of course, their job is to convince the rest of us,
Right.
what those are. But you've worked out, partnerships with all of them, so that you're drawing from many wells.
Right.
So that's so part of the deal is that the cheese is coming, which has got to be, and again, an operator issue. How do I get that flow of cheese so I'm not sitting on old cheese?
Right.
Because it's not going to be coming out of my freezer. It's going to be use it as quickly as I can and get it.
Right. Yeah. There's not an infinite shelf life on fresh cheese, is there?
Exactly.
If
And the
there
one
is,
thing you
I
don't
don't
want to
know
do is
of
go
it.
to your bag of cheese and see mold growing on the cheese.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what's so interesting is when I have worked in the kitchens, that the freezer is so small. We don't have much frozen food at all.
That's right, yeah.
Right. Everything's made fresh.
So so that's got to, and space is another issue with your
Yes.
all your locations. So there's got to be a whole team of people that are working on upfitting and outfitting and designing each when somebody
Right.
wants to open a place in a new space.
We have to have the right cooler, because again, we're making dough and then
Yes.
managing it afterwards.
That's
So
right,
you
yeah.
got to have the right cooler to do that. You got to move a lot of cold air in there to chill your dough.
You've got to have people that are experts in that as well.
Right.
Nobody can be an expert at everything, but one advantage of scale is that you can pay to have the best of the best.
But we have a lean team. We really wear many hats. So, for instance, at other places I've worked, I've had a team of 10 working with me. I am a team of 1
But-
at Marco's.
and you're also kind of a new category of team member.
Exactly.
There, because
Exactly.
They brought you in for innovation in house.
I mean, they've had a chef for like 10 years. So I'm just the latest in the
I see.
category of
I see.
chefs, but they never built up the culinary team, and they really rely on us all to work together and to leverage the operators. There's some great operators that,
What happens when an operator comes up with an idea and they want to get it upstream to headquarters and say, because if you do it in one, then you pretty much have to do them. If something gets on the menu, it's got to be at all locations, or is somebody allowed to put a couple local favorites of their own?
We've done that, and we're doing it right now. As a matter of fact, in one of my stores, I'm not going to say what the topping is, but it will be very popular in another country that we are about to go
I see,
into.
yeah.
So, with a certain ethnic group, and yeah, we're a little big company, right?
Yeah.
We can still be very nimble,
Yeah.
and quick and move fast, and Kathleen's doing that now. The number of balls that she's juggling.
yeah.
There's some really cool things that are kind of potentially in our pipeline, and for sure in our pipeline that we're looking forward to.
Well, I'm glad I got a chance to reconnect with Kathleen after all these years and find out that you're with Marco's and get a chance to meet you, Tim, because it's kind of been a missing piece. We forget, I think, out there that these large chain operations, even though it's part of what we think of as a big national or international brand, there's still an individual operator in place. It's like,
Right.
that's my place, that's my pizzeria. And so their challenges are the same as the independent operators. It's just that they're replicated across so many units. We talked about too the cheese and the dough. What about the sauce? That's got to be the big three of pizza. Is there some kind of a uniformity there and a pattern that
Yep.
differentiates your sauce?
Giamarco family recipe for the sauce. In terms of the spices, we use a fresh spice pack, make it fresh in the store every day, right? And of course, Our tomatoes are being grown where every other pizza place's tomatoes are being grown in California, of course.
yeah.
It's Aroma Tomato, and we've got a great partnership with the Neil Jones Group that they make a lot of sauce, right? And they do a good job with it, and our spice vendor does a great job. Great consistency.
So does the sauce come in ready to go, or does each
Oh no,
operation
it's not RTU. We have to make it in the store.
in store?
Yeah.
So it sounds to me, if I were to summarize all the things that you told me, is basically you're still operating with the independent mindset, like small operator mindset, but on a global scale.
Correct.
And and do you foresee being able to manage that model as you get into the 4,000 units and things like that?
Well, again, that's
Because everyone's
one of our-
fear about big
Yeah,
operations
yeah,
is compromised.
and that's our biggest challenge. Honestly, it is. And we so far with 1,200 plus stores, we've done a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and 1,200 sounds like a lot of stores. I remember I was doing some work for Panera a number of years ago, and they were getting close to 1,000, and everybody's heads were exploding at 1,000. I think now they're up to like 20,000. So
Wow.
So it can go from 1,000 to 5,000 very quickly.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's exponential growth.
yeah, we've opened 20 this year already. So we're opening almost 2 a week at this pace.
Which
So
is, it's hard for small operators to get their minds around that. But there's a lot of people here. Tony Gemignani, for instance,
Right.
who's a superstar in the independent
Yeah, I know
world,
Tony.
is now is in the franchise game.
Yep.
And he's getting ready to open, I think, 100 units around the country with a Tony Slice House brand. So it's the same. He's following your pattern, basically.
Yep.
Going from the small independent. I think Pat has got to be proud watching how it's gone, and I hope he's getting to enjoy the fruits of his.
Oh, he
of,
is.
of what he started 50, 60 years ago, and watching it turn into something
Yeah.
else, and yet still be able to have that his recipe still being used for the sauce, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for joining us on Pizza Quest today and sharing, some of this background. It helps to fill out the rest of the picture. I think, Paul Harvey used to say, now you know the rest of the story. And this is one part of our story that we haven't had a chance to explore very much. So thanks so much. And I hope as you continue to walk through the floor today, you see some new things. I always tell people, go to the competitions, because if you want to see what's going to be coming 3 to 5 years from now,
Right.
the people who are entering and winning those competitions are doing stuff that will be mainstream a few years from now. So I'm sure that's probably on your to-do list while you're here. But I remember when Detroit Pizza was first introduced at Pizza Expo. I mean, it was happening. It's been happening for 60 years, but nobody knew about it.
Yeah,
It happens
Buddies.
here.
Buddies started it way a long time ago.
And Sean Randazzo wins the competition, and Jeff Smokovich wins the competition with their Detroit-style pizzas, and suddenly Detroit is on everyone's menu now.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be looking to see, as Marcos, when you're free to talk about it, we'll try to get you back,
All
and you can
right.
tell us about the next generation of new products. And for those of you who are listening, if you got a Marcos near you, check it out. And I think it's just our website that people could go to for the general Marcos.
Oh,
website.
sure. Marcos.com.
Easy enough, Marcos, MARCOS.com. And again, I want to thank you so much for sharing, everything you told us about today. Good luck as you grow up. We'll be looking forward to your next 5,000 stores over the next couple of years. And come on back on Pizza Quest when you can. And thank all of you for listening today. We'll see you all on the next episode of Pizza Quest.
Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.